Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. The state of Florida has announced a ban on a number of proposed math textbooks for students because of their references to critical race theory or other prohibited topics. Stephen Colbert said this official censorship isn't just affecting history class, because this weekend we learned that they struck 41% of new math textbooks. At least they think it's 41%. For some reason, they suck at math. Trevor, don't get me started on the violence inherent in math. I will never forget the day 789 scarred me for life. It's cute. Colbert. The Florida Education Department explained the reasons for rejecting textbooks included references to critical race theory, which the legislature says includes theories that distort historical events. That explains the updated unit on division. A house divided against itself is, hey, that's two houses. Nice. Also cute. Kimmel, thanks to his important work, Florida has rejected more than 50 math books after the team uncovered sentence problems like Jamal has 7 apples. They felt Jamal sounded suspicious. And where did he get the apples? Does he have a receipt for them? Wow. Brett Goldstein, comedian. He plays Roy Kent on Ted Lasso. You know who I'm talking about? He was on Sesame Street. He's in a sketch. He's making cookies with Tamir, whoever Tamir is. I haven't watched Sesame Street in 40 years. And the Cookie Monster, my favorite. The word of the day begins with F. Yep, they actually went there. Well, they didn't go all the way there, but they did go for the joke just to get the parents to snicker for a second. The word of the day begins with F. The word is fairness. What did you think it was? From the laugh button, comedians took to Twitter to share that Spotify apparently has removed more comedy from labels including AST Records, Blonde Medicine, 800-Pound Gorilla, Helium, and Kill Rock Stars, and I can see why the laugh button would care about this, the Laugh Button Records. Megan Gailey tweeted, Spotify removed a bunch of comedy albums from independent labels today. Spotify doesn't seem so great, huh? The laugh button says, if you go to any of the Spotify pages for those comics or labels, you'll find them dead linked. What's dead linked? Basically, the page still exists and you can see the tracks, but you can't actually get them to do anything. This is part of an ongoing legal battle between some of the streaming services and comedian rights management companies Word Collective and Spoken Giants. The whole battle is over royalties. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. From Kiss El Paso, Paul Rodriguez is touring with the 20th anniversary tour of the Latin Kings of Comedy. This time, the Kings are Paul Rodriguez, Johnny Sanchez, Dennis Gaxiola, Gilbert Esquivel, and Joey Medina. Medina and Rodriguez, the only two of the original Latin Kings of Comedy in 2002. Some of the people that were on that first tour, and they seem kind of important. And if you're going to do a Latin Kings tour, Cheech Marin and George Lopez? So I'm not really quite sure what we're doing here. Hey, branding. The totally different new Latin Kings of Comedy will be touring this summer. Eddie Pepitone spoke to Good Times, South Carolina. He said, I've always been a harbinger of doom, not to brag. During the pandemic, I had a bunch of friends go to me, are you happy, Pepitone? And I'm like, no, I'm not. A lot of comedy is toothless and doesn't punch up or attack the right people. You want to go after people? Go after the Pentagon, the war machine, or the fact that America has the largest prison population in the world and corporations use prisoners to do work for them without paying them anything. And then he added, meanwhile, I have an iPhone. I'm a sports fan. I'm still part of the culture, so I'm making fun of myself too. I tell people I don't have material. My sets are a cry for help. I'm the punchline. Josh Wolf is in Nashville for the Comedy Festival this week. Main Street Nashville says back in the early 90s, Josh Wolf was living in Seattle. He got one of his first roles. He was the hype man and host for a behind-the-scenes Nintendo Power VHS previewing the soon-to-be-released Donkey Kong Country. Josh Wolf said, people send it to me once or twice a year and ask, is this you? It was embarrassing. I had my hair down probably mid-back. I'm wearing a vest with my t-shirt tucked into my acid-wash jeans. It wasn't a great look for anybody, but it was a good time. I got to work with a monkey. They were like, hey, if this monkey takes something out of your hand, don't take it back. And I was like, why not? Oh, it'll rip your face off. What? They were like, yeah, it's right around the age where it's starting to get aggressive towards humans. It's like a teenager, so this will probably be the last day it works with a human. I'm like, did you have another monkey? If you're at the Nashville Comedy Festival tonight, Bert Kreischer at the Opry House at 7 o'clock. Joe Gatto and Steve Byrne over at Zanies at 9:15. Not a bad night in Nashville. Tons of shows at Moon Tower tonight. Wow, let's see. Jessica Curson has one at 5 o'clock. That's early. I'm not reading them all. There's way more than I could ever read to you in a podcast. Kurt Braunohler and Scotty Lance at Cedar Street Courtyard at 5:30. Rosebud Baker and Andy Haynes, Creek in the Cave at 6. 6:30 at the Velve Comedy Lounge. Sean Donnelly, Jessica Curson, Chad, and JT. That's a good show. Dan Soder at the Paramount at 7. Fancy. Might want to hit Parish at 9 o'clock. Big J. Okerson, Mark Maron billed second for some reason, and Ali Makovsky. That's not even in alphabetical order. Why is Marin in the middle there? Dion Cole's got the Paramount to himself at 9:30. Neil Brennan has the stateside to himself at 9:30. On Tuesday's show, I was reading to you from Variety's interview with Rebecca Corey. The subject was Louis C.K. Rebecca is out promoting Stand Up for Pits. That is a fundraiser at Gotham on Sunday. I've been looking. I'm not sure who else is on the bill yet, but it's a worthy cause. Variety asked Rebecca Corey, it seems like all is forgiven and forgotten in some parts of the comedy community. The topic here is Louis C.K. That's puzzling to some people. Rebecca said, if I could make this a glass half full moment, I, unlike some of the others, was lucky enough that I never had to see him, I'll clean it up, finish. But can you imagine if Dr. Fauci did this to someone at his work? I'm going to take a second and think about that. I know it's not funny, but the Fauci part's funny. Come on. Would it be brushed off as, it's just his thing? No, I can't stop thinking of it. I know I'm a horrible person, but the visual is funny. It's funny. And I don't even think I'm picturing actual Fauci. I think I'm picturing Kate McKinnon's Fauci. I'm a bad person. Everyone's going to be mad at me. I know Fauci won't be reading this, but just in case he does, I want to congratulate him and the millions of men all over the world who go to work every single day with women and don't harass them. One of the easiest things to do is not masturbate at someone. And you guys are living proof. Keep up the great work. Variety asked, why you're willing to address all those things in your act. I'm still thinking of Fauci. Variety asked, why are you willing to address all these things in your act coming up when you weren't at the time? Rebecca said, it takes time to process it. And so much about it was so unbelievably painful and disappointing and sad and hurtful. And many times I feared for my safety. As I said earlier, I'm now able to process it. And I find some of the funny in what is a disgusting and absurd circumstance. I think it just takes time to process trauma into humor. Rebecca, thank you for saying that, because I'm sitting here. The Fauci thing has me cracking up like I'm 12. I know the subject's not funny, but you're the one that threw the Fauci image into my brain, man. That's funny. Go with that. Put that in your act. Rebecca, maybe you don't think of yourself as a role model, but thinking of other people who might be in comparable positions, do you have anything to say to them? She said, I'm a role model for eating carbs and then laying down, not this crap. I would say that I would never tell anybody how to handle anything like this or comparable to it in any way. You handle it however you feel is best for you. If that means staying silent, so be it. If it means screaming it from the mountaintop, so be it. No one else has a right to judge how someone handles being put in a lose-lose situation. Oh, and spay and neuter your pets, adopt, never shop. Jimmy O. Yang played Case Western Reserve U. Somebody from the observer.case.edu newspaper was there and said Jimmy made a heck of a first impression. The show was opened by Case Western Reserve University fourth-year student Nate Nagvajara. Opening a show with an audience waiting for Jimmy O. Yang is a daunting task. However, this Spartan faced the challenge head-on and triumphed. Despite only being on stage for 10 minutes, he made quite the impression, packing in a wide variety of funny bits. He cracked jokes about the university, his classics major, and his parents' disapproval of his life plan. He even educated the audience about the classics major, a surprisingly funny topic considering how esoteric it is. Good job for the fourth-year student. Next up was, and now I will go on a sidebar here. Next up was special guest Pete Guercio. The writer said, as a personal fan myself, I was thrilled to see his name on the program, and considering his over 200 million views on multiple platforms, I'm sure I wasn't the only one. Who? Pete Guercio? I've got more. Pete started with some jokes about the repeated mispronunciation of his last name. I'm probably doing that right now. A rather plain topic that he somehow transformed into something comedic. Probably the funniest part of his time on stage, however, was his mention of Craigslist and the rather basic, to say the least, nature of their website design. The creator of Craigslist had graduated from the university back in '75, so it was some hometown humor. I was curious about Pete Guercio. I've never heard the name. So I typed Pete Guercio into Google, and here's what auto-completed. Is Pete Guercio a real comedian? That cracked me up. The answer, Pete Guercio is a comedian in LA. His silly, positive comedy delights audiences around the country. Who knew? Maybe you all knew. Maybe I just suck at this. Jimmy O. Yang took the stage. The writer's favorite part was about Jimmy having loser friends. Jimmy talked about how successful friends never have time to hang out, so having lots of loser friends is essential. He did some material about the height difference between himself and his girlfriend. Yang is 5'6". The setup for the joke is that his girlfriend wears heels because heels make my ass look good. His retort, well, yeah, now it's at my eye level. That one killed the crowd. Sounds like it was a good show. From Chortle, 7 comedians have been shortlisted for the main award at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. They are Aaron Chen for If It Weren't Film, Nobody Would Believe, Cameron James for Electric Dreams, Daniel Walker's Nostalgia, Geraldine Quinn's Broad, Greg Larson's We All Have Bloody Thoughts, Laura Davis, If This Is It, and Reese Nicholson's Reese. The winners will be revealed 12:30 a.m. on Saturday night. Chortle gave 3.5 stars to Tom Cashman's show at Melbourne called Graphs. They wrote, obviously Tom Cashman's show is geeky, but in the same way those PR-generated news stories, which claim something like scientists have created the perfect formula for loading your nacho chips. It's fun, but real nerds might complain about the flagrant misuse of their beloved science. Cashman went viral twice in the last year. The first time was he was tired of all the red tape he had to go through to secure a lease on a Sydney property. He then asked the landlord for their references. The second time was after the cleaners left his garbage in the street. He got an angry letter from a neighbor, which Cashman posted online to mock the disproportionate intensity of the fury. Cashman reacts with disbelief that a silly gag is being taken so seriously. It makes him something of a passenger in his own story. Tom Cashman Graphs at Melbourne Town Hall until April 22nd. And from the Daily Mail, stay with me. A comedian who bullied his classmate by stealing his pizza makes amends more than 15 years later. That's right, a comedian used to steal his classmate's lunch in elementary school. TikTok, of course, helped him reconnect with his former friend. Joe Irwin is 25. He's in Tulsa. He shared his story in a now viral video explaining how he used to take his pal Dylan's pizza when they were in the first grade. Irwin explained he was friends with Dylan at the time. He didn't realize his actions were hurtful. He just wanted his lunch. We both always got pizza, and we always sat next to each other. We actually played at recess together. We were friends, but he was a little guy, and I was a fat kid, so I just thought since he's such a little guy, he doesn't get hungry like I do. Irwin said he would trick poor Dylan into looking in the opposite direction, and once the kid turned his head, he would grab his pizza. Dylan told him he didn't like it when he stole his lunch, and he would tell Dylan, "I'm sorry, man, I'm just hungry, that's all." I'd absolutely house that pizza right in front of him, and he didn't get to eat lunch. So Irwin asked his viewers if any of them knew a guy named Dylan who went to the particular school and is now in his mid-20s. Dylan, if you're out there, I'm sorry, man. I want to take you out to the most expensive pizza place that you could think of. I know it's not going to completely make it right, but at least I want to say I'm sorry. This video has been viewed 9.4 million times. One of the commenters, you didn't hear? Dylan starved to death, never saw the second grade. Another said, Dylan grew up to be Papa John. In a follow-up clip, Irwin revealed that he had tracked Dylan down on Facebook. He messaged him, he shared his video, explained he wanted to make amends. Dylan said, "This is amazing. Of course I remember you. And I've seen your fantasy O-line TikToks. I remember this happening, but I had no clue it was you. Next time I'm in Tulsa, pizza's on you, man." Well, good news. They're going to reconnect this spring. Irwin is planning to drive 4 hours to meet up with Dylan in Kansas City on May 14th. That is your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your shows. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to Buy Me a Coffee. Man, the ice is melting in this one. I need a new one. And what if somebody steals it when I'm not looking? You know what I mean? You go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. You throw $5 in tip jar. I go to the National Donuts chain. I buy a large iced coffee with caramel and almond milk. I have to get used to saying that now that I've switched my dairy. Or non-dairy, right? Almond milk is a non-dairy? We digress. See you tomorrow.